Everyone, welcome to the meeting of the Public Art Commission. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and we are convened here in Council Chambers. I'm going to start with roll call. Commissioner Richter is absent. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Here. Commissioner Toback is absent. Commissioner Miyagi.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Here. Commissioner Collins is currently absent. We are expecting her to join. And I am present, Commissioner Usage. So next we'll talk about agenda changes, requests, and deletions. And you have in front of you an agenda that if you don't have item 6 on there, there were a couple different copies of this. If it's missing number 6, add number 6, which is going to be a discussion of subcommittees. Hey, welcome, Trish. So Commissioner Collins has just joined us. We just took roll. We knew you were coming, so we're waiting for you. Welcome. And finally, we are going to remove item number 4 tonight from the agenda, the update on the online database. And staff, are there any additional changes tonight or additions, deletions?
Well, the agenda as it was posted, the online database was item number 5.
So are we missing a number 4?
I have action item 1, the acquisition of artwork, 2, University Avenue Tunnel update, 3, City Hall lobby artwork, 4% for art update.
Great. Okay, so removal of number 5, online database. Number 6 is holiday celebration, and number 7 is subcommittees. Great. Oral communications. Members of the public are invited to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda. For all of our speakers out there tonight. And next we have a review of the minutes of October 17th meeting. So these are, at least these are as they were emailed to us. These are the same ones that were emailed.
Yes, as they were posted,
as
because they can't be changed once they're posted.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so I had noted on our first action item, the City Hall lobby artwork, I'd asked of a tape review of that discussion and specifically on the motion. My understanding was that the motion that we made last month supported the $25,000 from this year's budget, but that we hadn't specifically indicated whether or not we were currently pledging for next year, that we would review next year within the context of next year's plans and budget for that other 25. And I know the staff recommendation was to offer a pledge, but I made the motion and I don't recall that being part of the motion.
I thought it was impossible.
That we couldn't actually allocate now anyway.
I think we...
Right, so the recommendation was to show intent to bring this back in the next fiscal year for the additional $25,000. So that's the way it's reflected in the CIP budget as we get to that item. But you are correct in remembering that the commission couldn't officially allocate funds from next year's budget until next fiscal year. But it was to show the intent, which was part of the staff recommendation.
Right, and I'm questioning whether it was the intent of the commission when we had our discussion in motion, because there were a lot of outstanding concerns, and 2 of them in particular, and they are called out here in the notes, were around the funding and what else was going to be coming to the table, as well as wanting to know before the project starts about plans for community engagement. And so we had included that as part of the motion as well.
Did you review the tape?
You know, I got on and actually it started our meeting appropriately, but then it actually cut out and it wasn't posted on that particular part when I went on.
Oh, okay.
So,
It is actually posted now, and so we did look at it, and there
Yeah.
was a bit of a gray area because staff made the recommendation, and as I recall, Commissioner Collins agreed to move forward with the recommendation, and then asked if the commissioners wanted to put some clarifications on it, at which point, Chair Usich, you took up the conversation. And you did say that you wanted to allocate the $25,000 to match the
1%.
the 1%.
Yeah.
But then the conversation sort of jumped, so it wasn't clear if you were including the staff recommendation in that
the
motion.
motion.
So there is a gray area there.
Okay. In which case, should we put it back up on our agenda for, it's not on action for tonight, so we can't remake a motion.
So what I recommend we do is if the commission wanted to go ahead and approve the minutes except for clarification on that item, then we can work on that offline. That would,
Okay,
that's what
and
I
so,
recommend.
and then we can review it, and if it seems unclear, we would then need to bring it back next month then, I suppose, if the motion made is not clear.
The only binding action item was the allocation of $25,000.
Right.
So really what we're talking about are details that are in the minutes. So there, what is of substance was carried forward in the motion. The $25,000 was allocated from this year's CIP.
Right. I mean, I do think the details also are significant insofar as, like, for example, I saw in Palo Alto Online, it was mispublished right after our meeting that we'd allocated 50,000 when we'd actually allocated 25. So that is a significant difference when it, not in the context of the overall amount of money being the funds that we're going after for this project as a whole are much more significant than that either 25 or 50, but in the context of the Art Commission budget, it is a significant difference. And I think that the commission, while fully embracing the opportunity in the project, was jumping into this with 1, not 2 feet on this initial step while wanting to know more about the plans. Some of you jump in here as far as you're remembering of the intent and conversation.
I remember it very similarly to you in that I thought that we said yes on the first 25,000, but we're pulling back on a commitment of a pledge for the second year until we had those milestones met. That was what I recalled, but I didn't have a chance to review the tape, so.
Okay. Do other people who were here and voted, I know, Amanda, you weren't here, although you were reviewing the tape and didn't get to see that part of it. Yeah.
What I recommend is that we go back and we look at the tape again together and address this offline because it is not a discussion item this evening.
Right. We're on minutes. And are we able to approve minutes without approving a section of the minutes?
You can call that out as you can in a motion.
Okay, so does anyone else have any other comments on the minutes from last month? Nope.
That was
okay. Then I move that we approve the minutes of Thursday, October 17th, with the exception of the action on the City Hall lobby artwork, which will be freshly reviewed on the meeting tape.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay. Did I see your light go on, Commissioner Collins?
Say aye, but I was.
Oh. Okay, so we'll move on from our minutes and go on into our financial reports.
Okay, so the financial report is fairly brief here. So on the CIP budget, you will see that a couple of payments moved from commitments to actually paid out. So the Stoller Studio, $15,000, and the 2 of the artist stipends for artists who have submitted their proposals for the University Avenue tunnels were paid. And then the other new item is at the bottom of PAC-approved future budgets is the City Hall lobby for $25,000. Are there any other questions on the CIP budget? And so from the maintenance budget, digital DNA was coded and cleaned, and so you'll see that reflected in the maintenance actuals, and there were some parking permits required to make that happen, so those are in there. And that's it for maintenance for this month.
How did you feel about the maintenance of DNA? I haven't seen that piece yet.
It looks great. I will address that in the comments.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Any other questions or comments on budget tonight? Okay, then we'll move on to staff comments.
So the day after the last commission meeting, October 18th, Palo Alto hosted the Northern California Public Art Administrators Association. And they meet about 3 times a year. Originally, when we had agreed to host it, we had hoped that perhaps Mitchell Park would be a little further along. But fortunately, we were able to host them in the Art Center, and so they got to see the newly renovated Art Center, and we're very impressed with that. And then I was able to take them on a tour of Mitchell Park. So during that tour, of course, they were able to see the Bruce Beasley, the Roger Stoller, and the Brad Olden Bollards. And the feedback was tremendously positive. People were really, really excited about what all we've taken on there. There was a lot of discussion about Percent for Art around the table because many of my colleagues do have Percent for Art programs. And so that was tremendously helpful in my information gathering as we prepared to go to council. November 7th was the commission recognition event, which many of you did attend. The commission liaisons were given proclamations and gifts for the commissioners, which I think, Amanda, you or 2 of you received tonight. So it was a way for the city to give recognition to the commissioners for their tremendous efforts. November 12th marked the evening that Public Art for Private Development went to council. And the ordinance passed unanimously, and council had very high praise for the commission and staff, recognizing the amount of work and effort and outreach that went into the development of the report, the background research, and just how much thought and effort had gone into that. The second reading will take place on December 2nd, and the ordinance itself will go into effect in January. So there is an update that'll come as an agenda item, so I'll get more into those details then. November 16th was the big unveiling for Aurora. Hundreds of people turned out for the unveiling of Aurora Saturday night. There were hula hoopers, there were dancers, a DJ, people of all ages and types turned out for the first lighting of the piece. There were art cars from Burning Man on site, and there was a bus that provided the stage for the speakers, which was kind of fun. The mayor gave proclamations to the Aurora kids in recognition of all of their efforts and outreach for this project. And the lighting was great. It was greeted with cheers and applause and more dancing. Staff would like to thank Charles Gadican and Harry Hirschman for their dedication and determination to make this project a reality. Staff would especially like to thank all of the many city departments and employees who made this project happen. And thank you to the commissioners for your patience and open minds as we moved through this process because it was a little bit irregular. The Kickstarter campaign is still in process. As many of you know, The artist did go out of pocket himself to fund a lot of the overruns on this. So the Kickstarter campaign has several days left. And so if you go to Kickstarter and look up Aurora, you will be able to find it there. And then finally, I wanted to go back to digital DNA. So I don't know if any of you have had the chance to see it, but digital DNA was just cleaned and recoded and looks so much better on Linton Plaza. So you'll have to go by and have a look. The conservator did a really nice job, not changing elements, not altering the piece, but really finding a way to preserve it and make it look much better. And so I think you'll be very impressed. So that is it for staff comments this evening.
Just a quick question on DNA. The conservator, remind us, how long does he expect that this work and coat will last on the piece?
As I recall, the estimate's about 5 years.
So it gives it a new life for now. Yeah, for a good amount of time.
Yes.
I just had a quick question. May I ask about the latest details on Mitchell Park launching?
Because it's not an agenda item, we really can't address that here.
Okay, just curious.
But we can put it on the agenda for the next time.
If you read the papers, it'll give you some insight.
I know. Just wondered if it was real.
We have a, okay, moving on. We're going to move on to our action item tonight. Item number 1. We have an exciting item on the agenda tonight, acquisition of a new artwork by Nathan Oliveira. You have in front of you a staff report, as well as quite a packet of bio information about the artist.
So, staff is thrilled to be able to bring this forward to the commission this evening. So the family of Nathan Oliveira has offered this gift to the city collection. You have his bio there, but as you likely know, he has a very long history with Palo Alto. He went to school at Mills College and the California College of Arts and Crafts, was a professor at Stanford for more than 30 years, had a studio in Palo Alto at the corner of Emerson and Hamilton, and made Palo Alto his home, and his children went to school here as well. The Palo Alto Art Center has exhibited Nathan Oliveira's work at more than 11 group exhibitions. And before his death, they had the first exhibition focusing entirely on the artist's sculpture. And the exhibition was Nathan Oliveira, The Painter's Bronzes, in 2008. And here you can see the artist actually working on the piece that's being donated. So the piece that is being donated, Universal Woman, was actually in the exhibition. Here he is in the studio working on her. So Nathan Oliveira had a desire to really play with scale and make a larger-than-life figure, and this is the resulting piece. So it's a really important work for the artist. And there were many challenges in translating something from a small-scale maquette to this large scale. The working name in the studio while they were undergoing this process was Big Girl. And while they did eventually give her the name Universal Woman, many of the Art Center staff know her as Big Girl, and that's how I first came to know her. So she was in the exhibition, and then she was temporarily sited for a couple of years after that in the historic courtyard of the Art Center. And so when the Art Center underwent the renovations, they did take her and move her for safekeeping and monitoring. So she is about 8 feet tall, and she is in excellent condition. So she's been stored in Berkeley with Piero Musi, who's the owner and master foundryman at Artworks Foundry. And so he's been taking very good care of the piece. The condition is wonderful. As for long-term maintenance, the piece really just requires an annual waxing treatment. So, of course, staff would get all of those directions and details and whatnot to make sure we can adequately care for her. But she's an amazing example of the artist's work. She's in excellent condition, and she has a long history at the Art Center. So the artist's family and the public art staff and the Art Center staff really recommend that she come back to the Art Center, but instead of being placed in the historic courtyard, that she's placed in the sculpture courtyard. So she'll be seen by more people as they come and go out of the Art Center, but the courtyard would also offer her some protection and safety. And so staff is recommending that that the commission vote to take Universal Woman into the city collection.
She's absolutely stunning. I was curious, what's the value associated with that? Are we going to put a value with that when it comes, if it does come into our?
Yes, we do get a value when the pieces come in. It would be a very significant gift.
I just want to make sure we have that.
Absolutely,
documented.
they do put a value on artworks when they come in.
Perfect. Well, then, with that, I move that we accept the donation from Nathan Oliveira's Universal Woman to the collection.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Regarding this piece and its acceptance, we touched on the concept when we had our executive meeting about, how this might be able to dovetail into a potential type of event or gathering for around this piece at the Art Center. And we'd like to, I'd like to hear back from when when this might happen and what we might be able to talk about as a group to commemorate it.
She'll need a welcoming committee.
Right?
Absolutely.
Anything else, you guys, on this? This is really quite significant. It strikes me that this would probably become our most valuable piece in our collection.
It would certainly be up there.
Yeah. Okay. Great news. Thank you for your work on this. I know it's there's a lot of things to be done behind the scenes to get to this point of presenting it, so thank you. Moving on, we are going to non-action items tonight. Item number 2 is the University Avenue Tunnel Project update by staff regarding the selection process and approval of the selected artist and proposal.
Mm-hmm. So we did have a delay, so we ended up having to relaunch the call for proposals to the 5 finalists. And so there was a little time lag in there. Those 5 finalists should have their proposals in December 9th. And so I'm working on scheduling a selection panel. Needless to say, that's going to be a little tricky to do in mid-December. I may try for one of those dates, but more likely it'll be the first 10 days of January before the selection panel can meet to evaluate those proposals. So assuming that is the case, that means that the final artist would then come to the commission in January. Unless for some reason we can meet before December 18th, the commission decides to meet December 18th, but a lot of things would have to fall into line perfectly to make that happen. So I'm guessing January is more likely.
And are all of our original candidates who we had requested pieces from responding? Do we know at this point?
One has said he won't respond. I feel pretty solid. We'll have 3 to 4.
Mm-hmm. Great. Of the 5 we select. Okay. Great. Any other comments or questions on this item? No? Okay. Moving on to number 3. Update from staff on City Hall lobby artwork.
So we've had some really exciting meetings. People are getting really energized about this idea of the transformation of the front of the building and of the capabilities of the artwork to really do that kind of community engagement. So we were able to, we're working on the construction documents as they're going out, and they're still getting bids back on various elements of it. And so we do have a commitment that there will be power and data and a lot of those support elements that we believe we will want likely on that wall. And we're hammering out the details. But the great news is we're also able to leverage some of the budget line items. So if the artist wanted to utilize those elements, for instance, a bank of 9 monitors, then we could use those. If the artist decided to do something else, we could get the credit for those. So we're already, that's $80,000 to $100,000 ahead of the game toward the artwork there. So that's been a really exciting move forward. And we're working with IT on identifying possible outside funders who might be interested in coming to the table for it too. So yeah, so it's gaining momentum, and people are really excited to see it move forward.
Oh, great. And when you say the wall, which wall are you referring to?
The wood panel
one facing as
right
you
when you walk
in.
in the room, right when you walk in.
The wall facing. Okay. Great. Any questions, comments at this point? Anyone? No. I have one. Timing of, so the construction documents now are being finalized. And at what point is there like an architectural plan for the space that can be shared and that would be going forth in the next step of putting together a request for proposals? Or concepts? Are you doing a request for?
We're doing a request for qualifications first,
right.
And then from that we would put together a selection panel to select up to 5 artists to create proposals. So as I mentioned, there have been some adjustments, and they're trying to get final budget numbers, so they should have numbers in the next week or so on what the various elements should cost and have a clearer picture on where they are with funding the overall construction. So that will give us a clearer picture of how much more there might be out there that we could leverage. So we're just waiting for those numbers, and then we can have a follow-up meeting. So it's just a lot of staying in close contact. There's a lot of moving pieces, but there hasn't been a final approval yet of which of those elements are going in or not. So we need to await word.
Some moving parts.
Okay. It's a lot of moving pieces. But we have prepared the team for the fact that because the project is actually scheduled to go out to bid in January, is my understanding, last I heard. And so the construction would likely be in the spring. We have prepared them for the fact that the artwork may not be installed at exactly the same time. So as long, we're just trying to make sure we stay abreast so that there's enough of the infrastructure and everything there to receive it. We just want to make sure it's not a very long lag time. So Raina and I are in close communication with all the partners, trying to make sure that we leave all of our doors open.
Great.
Is part of your question about a rendering, so that would get included with the RFQ? So the request for qualifications to artists, you wanted to just have a 3-dimensional view of what the space was available?
Yes, it was, because I always think of when we start a new 1% project, typically a city department is coming here and we're looking at, or an architect is presenting what the space is going to be, even for the...
Right, so it seems like they would have that by now. Do they have that? And so you're able to include
there's some
that?
rough drawings that would be included with the RFQ.
Great.
And as we move to the RFP process, then we'll have more information to give them.
Yeah. So
it will get presented here.
Along with the project, yes.
Yeah. Just like I
a
suppose any
typical
other
1%
project.
municipal.
And let's see, I had another question. What was it? Oh, right. Will there be public meeting for people to learn about, like there were for the library, the new library buildings, or is this not, is it significant enough of a project to warrant that type of public meeting, as was done for the libraries, which then could include talking about the art and ideas for it?
I would have to check with the construction team. As far as I know, there aren't. The library projects had a lot of stakeholders because there was a bond measure. There's a lot of literally invested stakeholders there. But we have been talking about different ways to engage the community in the discussions about the artwork, whether that takes place in gathering input or even exhibiting the final proposals in the lobby. So we've been discussing about what some of the other ways to engage the public in that discussion is.
So I'd like to open this up for conversation now about this very topic. It was one of the two things that when we've talked about this project, we had really voiced a lot of wanting to talk about, right? And the funding part of it, there's nothing for us to talk about right now unless any of us are going out to have connections around that. So with regard to the community input, I mean, this is a big conversation to be had. And one question I just want to put out to all of you is, would the prospect of exhibiting the final choices to the public, in your mind, meet a need of community input, like was done for the fountain at CalAv, where they're not I back up. Yeah. They're not a vote for a project, but insofar as a sharing of maquettes or ideas of what a few find, we've done this on a few projects now. A number of the big projects, there are oftentimes final choices that are put out to the public for feedback. For you here, do you guys envision? This is a new type of project for our city. We haven't done a new media piece before, right? One of the things that strikes me is that in this community, one of the things we have as a tremendous asset are great technology minds, people who are out there innovating and creating all kinds of things that we probably don't know half of yet. Now, how you incorporate that into a piece of City Hall art is another whole question. But in my mind, but I don't want to speak for all of us. I want to hear from you guys too. Having ideas come in from the public in a way that is manageable and feasible for this type of project seems like it could be a real win. But it's not obvious, as opposed to doing a panel and selecting a couple of finalists and then putting those out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I definitely think that since I've been on the commission, it's been a concern of commissioners of how do we engage the community. And for me personally, I don't know exactly what the most effective way of doing that is, but I do know that it needs to be meaningful, whatever it is. And I don't know necessarily that having, if it is a public meeting or a forum, having the citizenry, the community come and evaluate art as choices is particularly the best way to do that. I think that what we're looking for is input in terms of there's probably the broader topics, which is, what do you as a citizen of Palo Alto want out of your public art, or is it important, like these bigger questions. And once you're able to kind of figure out how to get people or engage them or reach them, then you can start to get there. You start to build credibility, and it kind of becomes a community involvement thing on a project by project basis. And I do feel that we as a commission are here every monthly, every Thursday, with lots of space, and I would welcome people to come here to hear, and to use an opportunity on the agenda to open it up for public commentary on a particular piece or a topic or something like that. But because we're here, and this is the public's meeting, this is public space, City Hall. It's all of these things. But I do think that I don't know what the sort of up until that point actually is clearly we're not standing room only here right now, so there needs to be steps to that point. But I feel like we kind of always talk about how we're going to reach, and we have the e-news, and it just feels like the time is now that we really need to get into a common practice of doing it so that we get better and better about doing it.
Well, I agree with that 100%. I think it's called public art. It's not Ben's art. It's not Larissa's art. It's public art. So we need to get the public involved. And I know one thing that does not work is to have a bunch of displays up and have people vote on them, because that will not work. Then you get into all kinds of messes that way. The most effective way, I think, is you get the artist, you select the artist, and then the artist has meetings, and then he gathers input from the community, what they want to see, and then he can come up with a proposal with that. So, but then I think, to Amanda's point, you need to get that word out. And how do you get that word out? This is just starting here, I think, that getting the public involved, the community involved. So that's one of the things that probably the governance subcommittee can look at, is how to get that out, how to get the people involved, and have people out here instead of one person. I know every meeting I've been here, this one person sitting out here has been out here as well. So, how do we get more people in here? And that's a challenge. That's a challenge that needs that we need to talk about, and how do we get everybody involved? And again, and I'm not sure who said it about, we have great people in this community, and we have great companies in this community that can, especially in this project, can offer input and maybe even a partnership in some way to help in the coming years to update it. Keep it updated, because as you know, in anything in technology, you buy something and it's obsolete. So how do we do that? How do we keep this updated and fresh? And one way is to get some partners that can do that. As they get new technology, Palo Alto gets that new technology. So how do we do that?
Thank you, Commissioner Miyagi. I'm curious to know if there are ways, what are the ways in San Jose that people are brought in to speak and give their input into projects?
Well, within the community, and there's a lot of community projects that are going on in San Jose. You get the people in the community, city council member for that area to get people involved. You get the word out, and people will come out, and that's and especially if it's going to affect them, and that's going to affect them in their area, and what they want to see. Excuse me, it's been very effective, and we've had some great public art pieces in San Jose, some not so great, but that's art. So, it's not going to satisfy everybody, but you want to get a majority of the people to give their input so they feel like they have some ownership of that, and say, I talked about that, I had some input into that, and they're going to bring people around to see it.
And some great examples of that in other programs, and we've certainly talked about that here, and it is in the hopper as far as a plan to go forward with, is developing a master art plan for the city. And there's some very innovative ways that I've seen other programs go out and solicit that kind of input. The one that I remember is from Pittsburgh, when to develop that art plan, they would go out in vans and literally, be at neighborhood venues and be on the street, and people aren't going to necessarily respond to a flyer that comes in the mailbox or to an email, right? It's personal interaction, and I think that gets to that topic of kind of getting widespread input where people feel vested and having a say in it, and not that a commission is sitting out there and making choices about art and that nobody has any say in it, right? And I think in the meantime, before this public art planning process kicks off, I think I ask all of us to think about how could we develop and advertise something that we're looking to get input on, to have this meeting be a venue for people to come and show up in it. Since I've been here, the biggest one, of course, that we got most people to come out for is, to your point, something people really cared strongly about, which was the fountain at Cal Ave. And when people felt passionately about that, we had a whole separate meeting that held outside of this meeting just to hear people talk about that. Did anybody who hasn't piped in on this subject have anything more to add on this?
Well, the percent for art does have the public art master plan in there, right? And that's a very important thing, because I'm on the public art committee for the San Jose Arts Commission, and I was part of that process, and that's something that you point at. And that's what you have a plan to go forward with public art and not just kind of everything thrown together. You need to have some sort of a goal to go down. And in San Jose, that public art master plan has been incorporated into the general plan,
Right.
which I think is the first time that's ever happened in any community where you have public art that's part of that general plan that moves forward to what you want the city to look like. And I think that's a very important part and something that needs to be considered here as
It's
well.
key, yeah. We've been talking about it for a while, and I think to your point as well of not having it be a plan that's just developed by the commission, but one that is, the input from it is from our public, and that guides all of us with, directions from there where we go,
Yeah. I mean, I think going through what happened with California Avenue, looking back at the fountain, I think that we really needed a marketing approach, and we kind of got bombarded in a negative way from the press, whereas I felt like we should have been more proactive. So I think proactive is the word. I think we really need to go out.
Yes,
People aren't going to come to us.
Yes.
Like you said, Pittsburgh, they went out to the tailgates, they went to where the people were. There were hundreds of people on City Hall this week for Aurora. They love art. People love to give their opinions in Palo Alto, so they will give them. But we have to make an effort. Working with Tony DeCenza and Vicki and I have had to go out and make appointments with corporations and get feedback from people, and it's been a lot of work. Literally walking up and down University Avenue, knocking on doors. So we can't just sit here and think people are going to come.
Yep.
I've met with Premier Properties. We've met with Brad Elkins, who's the broker there, who was welcoming us to put signs in his office and giving us feedback of what is going on in Palo Alto. So we have to go out. We have to go knock on doors is what I've seen.
yep. And I
We
think
have-
having a basic, I mean, in that case, you're talking about that's for a specific project, but I think if there's
Well,
a
for this-
basic platform of the questions to be asked for the master planning survey process, it gives everybody the tools to.
Well, I'm talking
to do
about
that.
this one project that's going to be $225,000. I mean, I think we need to go out to Service Monkey and Varian Medical and all the, HP and VMware, the big companies here, who are the technology companies. We're trying to put a piece of technology art. We need support. So we're going to have to
Agreed.
go out and be proactive and have a marketing plan so that it looks and everybody support from the public buys into it. I don't want it to be the press like it was and the vote with, I don't
Right.
want to relive
Yeah, we're
California
not going
Ave.
back.
That was really hard. So I'd like to be more proactive, I guess, and have a marketing approach. So that's probably for the outreach group.
Good lesson learned.
Yeah, that was a good lesson learned.
Seeing as I'm the only person currently on the outreach subcommittee, I thought I would take that one up for a moment to say that, I think it's the same process, whether it's a micro project scale, so the city hall, or it's the public art master plan, in that you do have to get out and do facilitated group inputs. And so it is a matter of press releases and getting the word out. We can go to the different communities that have each of the kind of listserv communication tools around the community. That would be one way to push the information out. And then if we have a variety of, sort of morning, noon, nighttime opportunities for people to participate, you do that. I mean, it's just the way to get input and to hear. And so I do think I liked what, Ben, you said about, I think it's the role of the staff and the commission to actually recommend to the community who the artist is. So we take the step of getting the RFQ and then the RFP and selecting the artist, and then part of the process is for the artist, we can help to facilitate getting those groups together, but then they need to ask for the inputs and hear those perspectives. And I think the artists are incredibly talented and creative and can come up with a way to integrate that. And then likewise, when we have the master plan, we will have, I think, a much larger facilitated group experience in that. I mean, I think that will be a sustained one. We'll go over a few months, and then, there'll be some iterations. And then ultimately, that will be the kind of record of the people and what they have said. And there are plenty of examples of how we can go facilitate that and get that done. So anyway, I think that there's a pretty clear process that we can do, and it's not onerous. I mean, I think we can undertake it and not have to knock down every door on the entire
It's been a lot
community,
of work.
yeah.
I mean, working with just this little project.
Yeah.
$7,000. It is lots.
What struck me at the city council meeting last week was there was at least 3 neighborhood associations that got up and talked about parking. And they presented a parking survey, I think it was, about their neighborhood. So there are the neighborhood associations, and that's, I think, a great way to get in contact with them and then get the word out, to get people out.
For sure. Great ideas, you guys. I'm glad that through the conversation of this project that we got to have this discussion, because I think a lot of us have been thinking about and wanting to discuss these ideas. This was helpful. Okay, so that was a wrap on item number 3. We're moving on to item number 4, which is an update on percent for art.
So as I mentioned during the staff comments, the item went to council November 12th and passed unanimously. And second reading will be December 2nd, which will mean that the ordinance is active in January. I believe it's 31 days after the second reading. So we're working very closely with our partners in planning, budget, and buildings to develop all of the materials that we will need to implement this ordinance. So it is a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. So doing both external and internal communications, doing training and answering questions and education to the folks who are working the front desk, and giving them the resources and the information to give developers as they come in to begin the process. We're also working to clarify how this gets phased in, because there are a number of developers who may be quite a way through the entitlement process but haven't yet pulled their building permit. So we need to work together on what is a fair way to handle that, so we aren't so it doesn't seem punitive to those first few. So we're working on all those logistics and really looking forward to getting it implemented. But it is going to take a lot of staff bandwidth over the next, between here and January to get all that stuff lined up so that this can move forward. Everyone's on the same page, the departments are working together, and the developers have the resources and the information that they need. So, for instance, I know Nadia and I were talking earlier today about, creating the various pools to make available to the developers. So we need to start getting some of those calls out for the additional resources we will need to help them. So project managers, pools of artists, all that kind of thing. So not to mention the call for the master planning process. So we are doing a lot of behind the scenes work, but it's really exciting, and it's really good work. And this ordinance, I don't think I need to tell you all, is a real game changer on what kind of things we're going to be able to do with the public art program. So we're really excited. We really want to make sure it's as successful as we can make it. There, of course, will be some learning curves and bumps along the road, and we anticipate that, but we're trying to think through as many possibilities as we can and make sure that we have the resources available. So that's where we are. If there are any questions.
Elise, I just had a quick question. It might be premature, but I'm just wondering about financial reporting on percent for private development. Would it be would it be its own separate budget then?
Yes.
As if it were pooled?
Yes.
Right.
So those will go into a separate fund, and we'll see. It'll be a learning curve to see what all comes in clearly, the master planning is going to be one of the first items there. And then we'll have to see how quickly the funds accrue, what kind of funds we're talking about. And they will be accounted separately from the CIP and separately from the maintenance and operations.
And then likewise for percent projects that don't get pooled, those would be part of those developers' construction costs. Like right now, the percent in munis, those budgets are within the project that is happening, like for the library. So those costs would, and so, but there is a process though by which the public art program would need to be aware of what that 1% budget is and how those monies are being selected for an artist, should that developer be choosing
Yes.
that. So that's sort of a separate...
That's a separate process, but yes, as they come
Yeah.
forward to the commission, the idea is that they would come early, and so they could gather input from the commission on types of artwork, possible placement of artwork, really to get them thinking a little more broadly, and then they would come back before they start any construction, before anything's under contract, with the proposal of the artist and the artwork and what that budget is, so that so that it looks fair and equitable and in line with the intent of the program.
Great. And a question on the artist pools, with those, so that if you're putting out a request for qualifications from artists of various types, or would those then go through an approval process whereby the artists in those pools have been sort of pre-approved by the city, such that if the developer then wants to hire one of those artists, they do that without a further approval, or
It's just to make the resource available to them. So
Yes.
developers may
want to go
say, I want a muralist. They don't know any muralists. And so
Right.
we just want to make this
To have
as simple
that.
as possible.
Yes, to give them
if
the
you're
list.
looking for this type of artist, here's a pool of pre-qualified artists. They are welcome to have a contract, because the contract is between the artist and the developer. They may choose to contract another artist, but we want to make sure that those resources are available to them.
So you're envisioning that there would be separate pools based on type of art then for
We're looking into those details now.
Okay, got it. Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense, the concept, as far as making the process easy and smooth and not reinventing
To
the
make
wheel
those
each time
resources
around.
available, because
Right.
developers may
They don't wanna have
not
to
want to
go do
go
that
out and look for
research.
artists who specialize in decorative fence elements or
Right.
something like so we just want to make it as easy as possible.
Right. Great.
I want to congratulate staff. They did a great job at the city council meeting.
Thank you.
And city council was highly complimentary about everything, and every one of them spoke, and they all had something good to say, which I found really refreshing. So congratulations. It was really hard work, and here we come.
Yeah, it's tremendous. I mean, this is a monumentous time.
Well,
to now
congratulations
be
to you all too. I mean,
here where we are, right?
you all have spent a long time putting your voices and your input and your thoughts behind this too. So it's really a win-win for all of us.
Isn't it great to see? I'm trying to think now back to, it's either, I would say 2 or 3 meetings ago, joint meetings ago, where this concept was presented to council. I can't remember now whether it was sort of 2 years ago or 3 when it first, the idea was given to them there, and it really has, became a conversation at that point, and it's really quite something to see it now as an ordinance that's been passed. It's great. Yeah. So anything further on this topic tonight? Okay. Great. Thank you, Elise. We're going to move on to item number 5, which was the online database, and we are not talking about that tonight. That was moved to next time. We're on to number 6, holiday celebration.
Well, number 6 is actually subcommittees. I apologize.
Okay, because we're going to stick with as it is posted, the
As it is
agenda
posted.
as it is posted.
6 is subcommittees. There isn't an agenda item for holiday celebration. I figured that could be addressed on the calendar
In the
item.
calendar. Great. Okay, we're on to discussion of subcommittees. And all of you have in front of you a list of subcommittees that people came forth to Elise with expressing interest in. I had a couple of add-ons to this that I think from myself and Vice Chair Ross that didn't get put on here, which is that myself also joining the outreach group, joining Commissioner Kavanaugh, and Commissioner Ross had expressed a desire to join the CalAV underpass ad hoc group.
Okay.
So these are the ones that people have expressed. At this point, I suppose, speaking of the Anthony DeCenza project, if that is an active project, then that would also be an ad hoc, correct? And who currently is serving on that project?
Vicki and I,
Okay, so let's add that.
and you.
I am?
Weren't you at one of our meetings? Didn't you meet with him?
No. Oh, okay, I did not. I know that for sure. I may have been invited to. That's very funny. So we have Vicki, and we have Trish. Okay. And so on each of these subcommittees, actually, when Vice Chair Ross and I had our meeting this week, one of the things that she has been spearheading is a follow-on from when we all met to talk about this concept of doing this with the subcommittees, and how four of us brought various notes about what each of these groups would be responsible for. So she's been taking those and putting them into a format that's consistent for each of them. And then each of these groups, we are asking to, on a regular basis at each monthly meeting, to just have it as a standing thing that at each of our meetings that they would report back to the group. Even if there's not a presentation to give, simply an update on what's being discussed, a chance for other commissioners to give feedback on, well, we think the governance group should look or think about this. And so sometimes there might be a presentation, sometimes it might be just a quick update. But initially what it would be, and Amanda, I'll let you speak to the document you're working on, but that would be sort of the first step would be each of the subcommittees meeting and looking at that document and coming back to this group with sharing what that group is choosing to take on initially. And I know with regard to, for the governance group, for example, although we haven't met also with Commissioner Miyagi, when we've met as chair and vice chair, have done an initial draft of our thoughts on priority items to work on. And so that for each of these groups, that strikes me as like what we'd come back with next month, is that we make contact and come forth with that. And I think for ad hoc as well, that it would be an update when there's an update to give on what's happening there. Do you want to talk to?
So I think if you'll recall, the last time we all got together, I think we were in the fireside room at Lucy Stern, and we were talking about really what was sort of the most efficient, leanest way to structure ourselves, but still, not completely abandon, all the good ideas that had been happening up until this point. So everyone worked on a draft of a document. We really wanted to have it's striking a balance between a formal structure, but still allowing flexibility in being able to work. And so what I'm doing is just collating everybody's information to then get to you this week, by Thanksgiving, a working document that just kind of spells out some parameters of what we understand as a group, this group will do, a time frame for it, maybe some priorities if they've already been discussed, just basically a formalized collating of all the notes that have been taken so far on the subcommittee ideas. And then the idea behind the monthly reporting is not just to update the commission in terms of what everybody's been doing, but to just get into a regular practice of having an update, just continuously updating, as opposed to, you know, every so often wanting to update, but not feeling like you've gotten yourself organized in advance to call Elise to do. It's just standing on our meetings, outreach, here's what we met about this, and here's what's going on. Very informal, but just, you know, sort of an update.
opportunity to be proactive as well, right?
Yeah. So that document I hope to get to you in the next couple days. It will be within the week.
Thanks, Amanda.
Sure.
And to that as well, what you were just talking about with the proactivity, I mean, interestingly, as we were going through this process to figure out how did it make sense to form subcommittees, you guys may remember that these were natural group breakouts from what we've been doing the last few years as a commission as far as the MAP plan, right? When we've had our retreats over the last couple of years, these are actually the very sections of that document as we've been thinking about as a commission what our priorities are. So that's an easy one to go back to for these groups as they initially meet, is to look at, you know, what did we have? I mean, and some of that, the MAP document may or may not be as relevant now a year later, but it's a chance to look at it and again, have as a starting point to see, you know, that combined with what we've received now as sort of staff priorities coming up as well, to kind of collate these things and say, you know, what's most important to focus on right now. Of course, we have a whole big shift happening too with 1% in private, so that's going to overlay as well. So for me, when I think about then innovation and that group, I think about not only innovative art, but I also think about it who are doing innovative things in their art programs, and you know, in 1%, in bike pathways, in you know, who's doing a good job of outreach and surveying their constituents, and you know, I think there are a lot of it moves our group to what we've been talking about, out of doing project management and into strategy, right, and advice. So I'm excited about this new structure and hoping that we'll all get in a good groove with it once we get going. Does anyone have any other thoughts or you know, on this at this point? No?
I guess I just had one. So you thought, Amanda, that you might have that summary kind of overview for us within the next week or so. And then in December, are you hoping that we start these overviews? I know we're going to maybe talk about if we're having this December meeting, but or should we do it in January, or when's the time frame for actually starting our?
I mean,
May as well.
I think that it would be nice that before our next meeting in the next month, that we at least, each of our groups would at least connect and determine what our priorities are, even if we haven't actually taken steps toward them.
Okay.
To be able to report back on that.
Yeah, so straight away.
Does it seem reasonable?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. Anything else on that? Nope. Okay. Great. So that is the end of our non-action tonight. And we're now on to for your calendar. That brings us to, we have a meeting scheduled on December 19th. Typically, we have done meetings in December, although there have been years where that's been the holiday party, although sometimes it's both. We've rolled from one into the other.
We have done, if there is an action item, we have had moments where we've
done
met for 15 or 20 minutes, taken care of the action item, and then adjourned to a party.
Yes, we have. I'm remembering being in Terry's studio one time and having action items that were before a party. Publicly announced, of course, right? So are there thoughts on rolling forward with our meeting or not, or what are people's? My vote would be to have one, even if it's short.
That's what I was going to say, is it seems that there's enough going on that, and certainly with the new subcommittee structure and then trying to just keep momentum rather than completely abandon our structure, it would be probably good to.
Then 2 months go by.
Right.
I mean, even if there aren't any action items, which there,
Right, and the commission could always choose to cancel the meeting as we get closer to the date too. So if you wanted to just hold the date, and then if for some reason there aren't action items, and I could send out a reminder to all the commissioners and take a poll and see who is available, who may be out of town.
right, ensuring
And
our
you all can-
quorum as well.
And you
Right.
can determine later if you wanted to cancel the meeting.
Right. Okay, that sounds good to me. Does that sound reasonable to everyone?
I think we might also start looking at a date for if we're going to have a retreat in January. Yeah.
And then on that point, the joint meeting, I know we canceled, and then I didn't know if is that another kind of good part of 6 months to a year before we can reschedule that, just because the city council is busy?
Yeah, that has to do with the council's calendar. So I think they're pretty booked up between here and the end of the year. And then the first couple weeks of January, of course, there's an election of a new mayor, and they change the subcommittees. So, or they change the liaison duties. So I haven't received potential dates back yet, but my guess is it'll probably be in early February, realistically.
Well, that's much sooner than I guess I was thinking it would take to reschedule, so.
Well, they haven't gotten back to me yet,
Right,
so we'll
okay.
see.
I will hold my breath.
And I'll just comment that likewise for us, we have moved our schedule of electing chair and vice chair over to map to the council calendar, whereas we used to do it in September in the fall. All of the other boards and commissions were lined up with city council, and we will now be too, to have as a new year election for that as well. So, great. And then we also, for the calendar, you wanted to add in the holiday celebration conversation. I can share what, Elise, when you and I and Amanda met, it is late at this point to plan something really to be able to announce it for next month, but we were remembering back to a number of very successful occasions that we've had over the years in various art galleries and art studios, and opportunities really for us to connect with quite a large pool of people from local artists, former art commissioners, council members. It's a nice opportunity for that. And one of the things we had talked about doing is tying it in with a launch or an unveiling of a new piece, like the Nathan Oliveira or like the Mitchell Park artwork, where it could be, relevant and part of an opening as well. What are thoughts do you guys have at this point in time? Any?
Are you saying to do a launch with a holiday party?
Well, we're saying
Because there's no launches coming up
had.
anytime soon.
Right. So I guess they would no longer be a holiday party.
Yeah,
It would be an annual. It would be a commission. It would be a public art party around.
Like what we just had for Aurora?
A new piece.
Like the Aurora party? Like we just had, are you saying something like that?
Right. But one, as opposed to being maybe announced to the public, would be invitations, as we've done before, to, I think we probably have a list of a couple hundred people who've received our invitations in the past, former mayors and council members and commissioners and local artists. And, what we had done before is sought out venues who were interested in being able to host it. We had a commissioner who was on the board of the league, the local art league, and we had it, Pacific Art League, we had it there one year. So,
And we had it at Bryant Street Gallery another year, and Lunar Design hosted us another year. So we've had a number of downtown venues, and then
Terry Studios,
Transport Studios, because one of our commissioners was an artist there, and so we did it one year there.
And then last year, when Rye came on board, we did not do the Christmas party, and she moved it to January in conjunction with an educational piece. That's why we did not have it last year.
We didn't have a holiday party last year.
Right, so she had the celebration with a speaker. Was it not Carol Sprinkles, but somebody like that? It was in January. We invited everybody to come to the speaker at the Art Center.
It was Barbara Goldstein.
Barbara Goldstein.
Right,
Aha. Yeah.
I think it was, yeah, February. or
Well, I'm
January.
certainly in favor of some type of event around something.
Yeah.
But I know everybody knows that I think that, so.
Well, I mean, I made a list of the things that we have sort of forthcoming, and there's a lot that we could tie into. So hopefully there will be Mitchell Park to launch. There would be the Olivera installation. There's potentially, something related to the lobby here, even if it were 4 months from now, right? Could be a Spring Fest thing. So there are quite a few things. I even have a few more, but it seems to me to tie it to something is a good idea. Yeah, and a natural. But it sounds a little bah humbug that we're not planning something for December, but I think that's fine for me to wait.
Okay.
So who do you have on the guest list? I heard former city council members, mayors, and things like that.
Former commissioners,
former
local artists,
commissioners.
people who have, I know some, like Paula Kirkby, who's been one of our bigger donors to the collection.
How about head of the Chamber of Commerce and business leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually to your point, Ben, I think one good first step for us would be to take a fresh look at, since we didn't do one last year, or I don't know if that whole list was invited to the event you're mentioning, would be to take a fresh look at the list and see how we might develop it. I mean, one of the things that Vice Chair Ross and I have talked about is, that it would be nice to have a pool of whether it's formalized or not into a friends group, but, Friends of Public Art in Palo Alto is really the group that we're talking about wanting to invite, whether it's potential donors, whether it's people who have
Potential partners.
Interested in the arts.
You have
I
an
think.
ulterior motive to get them involved.
Absolutely.
And see what's going
And-
on, and you get them booked a little bit. And
Absolutely, and to be able, there's nothing like, shaking hands and welcoming in a Nathan Oliveira and enjoying,
Some water.
When are we
I was gonna say a
thinking Nathan
mimosa,
Oliveira is
but-
coming? When do we think that will be here?
Well, the donation of the artwork will take place before the end of the calendar year. And when we actually take possession of the artwork depends on when we can get the pad poured to secure her in place. So, hopefully it will happen early in 2014.
Okay.
But she's ready to transport any time. It's just a matter of having a place to put her where she is secured and has a good footing.
To do something around Mitchell Park is unrealistic because the invitations are going out. I mean, they're spectacular, and they're inviting it's called the Mitchell Park. It's your Mitchell Park is the theme, and it's a spectacular invitation. I mean, we can do things around that, but
Right.
and we will, of course, invite our people, but that's going to be probably January. I mean, I don't think we'll have time to, I mean, that would be just like doing a Christmas. We'd have to get things moving
Right, with
within a
it.
month.
right.
Well, we'll keep our eye on the calendar.
The Nathan Oliveira would be more realistic.
Yeah, and it's an intimate setting as well in that courtyard, and about a significant new piece. And so I think to our conversation about looking at who's on the guest list for that, which was like a printed card. I remember at some point Darlene was working on getting that so that we would have the email addresses for those folks, but we had some and we didn't have others. And I wanted to share for our newer commissioners that initially when we started our e-news, how we got people into that list was that every commissioner put together a spreadsheet with lists of names of people that they knew might be interested in hearing from us. But I think we have a great need and opportunity to grow our electronic lists as well. beyond that, and to, maybe that's something that, ideas, if Nadia's managing that now, we can filter her way. But there are other art lists in the city where we could send out an invite to join our list, and it would be nice if we had something to share and announce as a motivation for people to do that, like tours of the public art at Mitchell Park, or an announcement about a great Nathan Oliveira opening or something. I think we could tie those together. People want to be part of something when there are things happening, right? Yeah.
I mean, I think Aurora was a perfect example. It's pretty exciting. I mean, there was hundreds of people. It was great for public art.
It received a lot of attention and PR and marketing. That's
I mean,
for
it was
sure.
a huge block party. I mean, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a perfect example of getting people excited about public art. I mean, that's the first time I've actually seen people excited about public art in Palo Alto in the 4, years that I've been on the term, and they were thrilled. It was a huge block. I mean, you were there, you saw it.
Yeah.
Is this an election year in Palo Alto City Council?
I don't think so.
No, there were no
There were
council seats.
there was
No.
nothing in
Because
November.
I know in San Jose, every candidate is showing up for everything. Just to get out there. So, that's if there was elections here, then that's a way to also get those people out to,
Okay. Great. Anything else on that? No? Any other announcements that anyone has?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving announcement. Our meeting is adjourned.